I never imagined forgetting could feel like drowning. It started small. I'd misplace my keys, and they'd show up in the fridge. Or I'd walk into a room and completely forget why I was there. I told myself it was just part of getting older. Happens to everyone, right? But then it got worse. One Sunday morning, I drove to the store just 2 blocks from my house. I've lived in this neighborhood for over 30 years. I should know every corner like the back of my hand. But I stood in the parking lot, holding a bag of groceries, staring at rows of cars, unable to remember which one was mine. Worse, I couldn't even remember driving there. I sat down on the curb and cried. When my daughter Sarah called later that day, I broke down and told her everything. She rushed over, hugging me tightly, her voice warm and reassuring. "It's okay, Mom. Maybe you're just stressed. Let me stay with you for a while, just until you feel better." I didn't argue. Sarah was my only child. After my husband passed away 5 years ago, she was all I had. We used to be so close, movie nights, Sunday dinners, shopping trips. But somewhere along the way, life changed her. She became distant, sharper around the edges. I chalked it up to work stress and didn't pry. She moved in the next day, bringing with her boxes of clothes, her laptop, and a collection of supplements and teas. "These will help calm you," she said, mixing chamomile with something else I didn't recognize. I wanted to believe she was helping. But something about it all felt off. The tea made me sleepy. Too sleepy. I began waking up disoriented, with hazy patches in my memory. Some nights, I'd go to bed in my bedroom and wake up on the couch. My body felt heavy in the mornings. I'd stare at my reflection, struggling to remember what day it was. One afternoon, I found a casserole in the oven, half-burned. I had no recollection of making it. None. My hands smelled like garlic and rosemary, but my mind was blank. I asked Sarah about it. She smiled tightly. "You made it last night, Mom. Don't you remember? We ate together. You loved it. But I didn't. And that scared me more than I can explain." I started writing things down in a little notebook I kept in my nightstand. The date. What I ate. Who I spoke to. What I watched on TV. I told no one. If I was truly losing my mind, I wanted at least something to ground me. A paper trail. A glimpse of the person I used to be. Then came the day I found my pill organizer rearranged. I've always been meticulous with my medications. High blood pressure. Cholesterol. Calcium. But one morning, the slots were all mixed up, some empty, some doubled. When I asked Sarah, she waved it off. "You must have done it in your sleep." Done it in my sleep? That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed, heart racing, staring at the ceiling. I thought I heard whispers through the wall, Sarah on the phone, her voice low and hurried. But when I got up to listen, she'd already gone quiet. I told myself it was paranoia. Until I found my phone in the washing machine. And I hadn't done laundry that day. I replaced the phone, but didn't restore any apps except for one, a voice recorder. I tucked a small audio recorder behind my bookshelf, right near the vent that connects my bedroom to the living room. I felt ridiculous. Suspicious. Crazy. But I needed to know. The next morning, I listened. And I heard her. Sarah's voice. Clear as day. "Give her another one. Just crush it into the soup. She's not asking questions yet, but I think she suspects something." My heart stopped. I rewound. Played it again. And again. Another one of what? What was she putting in my food? Who was she talking to? The tears came hot and fast. It felt like someone had punched me in the chest. This wasn't just forgetfulness. This wasn't just aging. This was betrayal. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I played it cool. Pretended I was more confused than ever. I wrote everything down. Every time she cooked. Every time she brought me tea. I hid the notebook in a plastic bag inside the tank of the toilet, somewhere she'd never think to look. The more I listened, the more I learned. She'd been drugging me. Every day. Sometimes twice. I couldn't understand why. What could possibly drive my own daughter to do this? I raised her with love. I worked nights for years to put her through college. I gave her everything I had. And now, this? The final recording I made that week still haunts me. I remember pressing play and hearing her say, "Give her one more tonight. Trust me, no one suspects a thing. She thinks it's Alzheimer's. It's perfect. Perfect." I turned off the recorder and sat in the dark for a long time. The weight of the truth pressing on me like 1,000 bricks. She wanted me to think I was losing my mind. And I had believed her. But not anymore. I was done being afraid. Done being silent. And above all, done being manipulated. She may have tried to erase my memory. But now, I would remember everything. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the armchair by my window, wrapped in my old blue knit blanket, staring out at the streetlights flickering through the blinds. My hands trembled around a lukewarm cup of tea I'd made myself, plain, just water and leaves. Nothing added. I didn't trust anything Sarah gave me anymore. I kept replaying her words in my mind, those awful, calculated sentences. No one suspects a thing. It's perfect. My daughter. My baby. She used to hold my hand with sticky fingers and beg me to read her fairy tales before bed. Now, she was slipping pills into my food and whispering about it behind my back. What kind of monster does that to their mother? No. I wasn't going to cry again. The next morning, I acted like nothing had changed. I greeted her with a smile, complimented her French toast, and thanked her for looking after me. She beamed. Maybe she thought she still had me fooled. She didn't know I'd stopped drinking anything she touched. She didn't know I was swapping the food she cooked with frozen meals I made myself in secret at 2 a.m. when she was asleep. She didn't know I'd stashed another recorder, this time in the hallway closet. For every lie she fed me, I quietly collected the truth. And the more I listened, the more it made sense. She wasn't just trying to hurt me for fun. No, this was about money. Every conversation she had was laced with phrases like power of attorney, sell the house, mom won't remember, she'll sign anything if I ask the right way. That house, my house, was the only thing left from my husband. We built our life there. Paid every mortgage check on time. Picked out the wallpaper together. Buried our dog Max in the backyard. It wasn't just a house. It was my memory, my roots, my safety. She wanted it gone. And I was in her way. But here's the thing no one tells you about getting older. People forget that just because you're slower, softer, more fragile, doesn't mean you're not sharp. Doesn't mean you can't fight. I decided to go to the doctor, but I had to be careful. I waited until Sarah left for a friend's wedding. I knew she'd be gone for at least half a day. I'd seen the invitation taped to her bedroom mirror. I called an old neighbor, Joan, and asked her to take me into town. Joan didn't ask questions. She's the kind of woman who shows up at your doorstep with baked ziti and open arms. She simply said, "I'll be there in 10. I told the doctor everything. He ran a battery of tests, cognitive assessments, neurological scans, blood panels. I sat in that cold exam room, bracing myself for the diagnosis I feared was coming. But when he returned, his face was calm. "Your tests are completely normal," he said. "There's no sign of Alzheimer's. No cognitive decline at all." I laughed. Then I cried. Not because I was relieved, though, God, I was, but because it confirmed the horror I'd been too afraid to name. I wasn't sick. I was being drugged. Deliberately. Repeatedly. By the person I trusted most. I handed him the recordings. He listened, frowning deeper with every word. By the end, his knuckles were white from gripping the recorder. "You need to go to the police," he said. And so I did. With Joan by my side, I walked into the precinct, clutching a folder filled with audio files, notes, and timelines. The officer at the desk raised an eyebrow when I explained, but after listening to just one clip, he called in his supervisor. They took it seriously. That night, I went back home. Sarah was already there, sitting on the couch, humming while scrolling on her phone. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, Mom. You feeling better?" "Better?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat beside her and nodded. "Much better, sweetheart. I think the fog is lifting." She didn't notice the difference in my tone. Or maybe she did. Maybe a part of her always suspected I wasn't as gone as she hoped. But she never asked. Over the next week, I waited. Police told me they needed to collect their own evidence. Confirm the substances. Record a few more days. I was instructed to go about life as usual. To let her cook. Let her serve. Let her whisper behind my back. So I did. And every moment felt like poison. One night, I heard her on the phone again. I was sitting by the vent with my recorder in hand. "The house will be in my name by next week. I've already got a buyer lined up. She's signing the papers on Friday." Friday. 2 days away. That night, I didn't sleep again. I stared at the ceiling and thought about every time I had told her I loved her. Every lunchbox I'd packed. Every fever I sat beside. Every night I walked the floor until she came home safe. Was I a fool? Maybe. But not anymore. On Friday morning, just as Sarah laid a pen on the table beside a stack of documents she wanted me to sign, there was a knock at the door. 2 police officers. Calm. Professional. They asked to speak with her privately. Her face blanched. She glanced at me, then back at them. She never saw it coming. As she stepped outside, I followed, arms crossed, heart pounding like a drum. She turned to me, pleading, "Mom. I didn't mean to. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her. Not with hatred. With heartbreak." And for the first time in weeks, I felt clear. Because I wasn't crazy. I wasn't forgetful. I wasn't lost. I was awake. The silence after they took her away was deafening. For the first time in months, maybe years, the house felt still. No footsteps echoing down the hallway. No clinking of teacups. No fake reassurances wrapped in sweet smiles. Just me, the ticking of the kitchen clock, and the kind of quiet that cuts deep. I stood in the middle of the living room for a long time. The sunlight was pouring through the window, lighting up the dust in the air like golden snow. There was a coffee stain on the rug. A framed picture of Sarah and me at the Grand Canyon sat crooked on the shelf. I didn't touch it. I just stared. It was hard to feel like the hero when your own child is in handcuffs. Even after everything, I still loved her. That's the curse of being a mother, I think. The betrayal doesn't kill the love, it just bruises it so badly that it aches in places you didn't even know existed. The officers had told me it would take a few days before anything official was released to the public. They had enough to press charges, evidence of drugging, attempted fraud, manipulation of a vulnerable adult. Words I never thought would be associated with my daughter. I made myself some tea, real tea, just peppermint, and sat down to process everything. I thought back to when Sarah was little. She had these purple overalls she used to wear everywhere. She loved dandelions and grilled cheese and hated thunderstorms. When she was 5, she once climbed into my bed during a storm and whispered, "I'll protect you, Mommy." Now I had to protect myself from her. The guilt was sharp, gnawing. What did I do wrong? Did I spoil her? Was I too soft? Did I raise her to believe she could take what she wanted and no one would stop her? I couldn't let myself spiral. So I did what I always do when I feel overwhelmed. I cleaned. I scrubbed every surface, dumped every suspicious item in the kitchen, threw away the sleeping pills she'd crushed into my food. I washed the curtains, vacuumed under the couch. I even opened every window in the house just to let the old air out. It wasn't about hygiene. It was about taking back control. Later that night, I received a call from Officer Daniels, the one assigned to my case. He told me the lab confirmed the sedatives found in my system. Powerful stuff. Not just over-the-counter sleep aids, prescription-only tranquilizers, the kind that can cause long-term memory issues with consistent use. "You're lucky you caught it when you did," he said. "Another few months, and the effects could have been permanent." Permanent. That word chilled me to the bone. Sarah had been slowly erasing me. The next few days passed in a haze of interviews, forms, statements. I had to relive everything. Over and over. The pills. The memory loss. The phone calls. The look on Sarah's face. I kept my voice steady, my eyes dry. I was stronger than I looked. The media got hold of the story within a week. Daughter accused of drugging elderly mother to steal home flashed across the local news channel. They asked for a statement. I refused. I wasn't ready to become a symbol. I was still just a woman with a broken heart and a quiet house. Then the court date was set. Preliminary hearing. Open to the public. I wore a navy dress with a pearl brooch my husband had given me on our 25th anniversary. I needed to feel like myself again, dignified, solid, unshakable. When Sarah was led into the courtroom, my stomach flipped. She looked smaller somehow. Her hair was tied back. No makeup. No confidence. Just a scared woman in an orange jumpsuit avoiding my gaze. Her lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of a stressed-out daughter, overwhelmed with caregiving, desperate for help. They used words like accidental, misguided, emotional strain. I nearly laughed. Then they called me to the stand. The walk to the witness box felt like a mile long. I sat down, placed my hands on my lap, and spoke into the microphone. I told the truth. I told them about the memory lapses, the fear, the betrayal. I told them how I began to doubt myself. How my own daughter's voice on those recordings ripped my world in two. How I felt like I was going crazy until I realized I was being poisoned, slowly, methodically. When I finished, the room was silent. Sarah didn't look up once. The judge adjourned for the day. A full trial was coming. But that wasn't the day I was waiting for. It was what happened afterward that shook me. I was walking out of the courthouse when I felt a hand on my arm. It was a young woman. Early 30s. Stranger's eyes. She said, I just wanted to say, thank you for speaking up. My grandmother went through something like this, but she never said anything. I wish she had. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. She walked away before I could ask her name. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the place where Sarah used to sit. I thought about all the dinners we had there. The laughter. The quiet. The lies. I poured myself a glass of wine and whispered into the silence, I forgive you. Then I added, softly, firmly, but I will never forget. The day of the trial arrived like a storm hanging just over the horizon, slow, heavy, inevitable. I woke up before dawn, the house still blanketed in silence. I moved through the morning like someone preparing for war. The navy dress again. The brooch. My late husband's old watch, though it hadn't ticked in years. I wore it anyway. I needed him with me. The courtroom was full when I arrived. Reporters. Spectators. A row of people with notepads and hard eyes. Some were there for justice. Some were there for drama. Some just wanted something to talk about at dinner. I wasn't there for them. Sarah sat at the defense table. Her hair was neat, and they'd given her a navy blazer to wear over her jumpsuit. She looked like the version of her that used to show up for parent-teacher conferences. Calm. Polished. Controlled. But her eyes were different. Gone was the girl who clung to my hand on the first day of kindergarten. In her place sat a woman who'd calculated her mother's downfall. The trial began. The prosecution was strong, concise, clinical. They played the recordings. Every damning word. Crush it into her soup. She won't remember. She'll sign anything. Each sentence echoed through the room like a hammer on glass. People gasped. Some shook their heads. Sarah didn't move. Then her attorney stood and began his defense. His voice was smooth, almost gentle. My client was overwhelmed. She never intended to harm her mother. She believed, wrongly, that sedation was a form of care. A misguided method to provide peace. He turned to me with a practiced kind of pity. She was caring for a woman who was showing clear signs of dementia. There were memory lapses. Confusion. Erratic behavior. Ms. Walker panicked. She made terrible choices. But not malicious ones. I held my breath. Then they called Sarah to the stand. She walked slowly. Sat down. Swore the oath. When asked if she drugged me, she paused, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, she whispered. But I didn't want to hurt her. I was drowning. I lost my job. I was in debt. I didn't know what to do. And she kept getting worse. I didn't know how to help her. I thought if she could just sleep more, maybe I could breathe. The tears began to fall. I'm sorry, Mom, she said, turning to face me for the first time. I'm so sorry. And I believed her. That was the hardest part. I believed she was sorry. But that didn't make it right. I was called back to the stand for closing testimony. The courtroom held its breath. I looked at the jury, then at the judge. Then I turned to Sarah. My daughter gave birth to lies, I said quietly, but clearly. She spoon-fed me false memories. Made me question my mind, my body, my entire sense of reality. That is not caregiving. That is erasure. Intentional. Repeated. Unforgivable. I paused, letting the silence speak with me. I don't doubt she was overwhelmed. I don't doubt she was scared. But fear is not an excuse to poison someone. Desperation is not a license to destroy another human being's dignity. I leaned forward slightly, voice steady. You all heard her words. So did I. I heard them in the dark, on a recorder I planted because I stopped trusting the person I once loved most. And that is something I will live with for the rest of my life. The judge nodded. The jury left to deliberate. An hour later, they returned. Guilty on all charges: elder abuse, attempted fraud, administration of a controlled substance without consent. Sarah didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She just closed her eyes and nodded. For the first time in this whole mess, she looked like a woman who understood what she had done. When they led her away, she turned back and mouthed one word. Mom. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited. Flashes of cameras. Shouted questions. Ma'am, how does it feel to see your daughter convicted? Do you think she deserves prison time? Will you ever forgive her? I held up my hand and said only this. She broke me, but I rebuilt. Then I walked past them, into the street, into the wind, into the beginning of whatever came next. I never went back to the courtroom after that day. There was no sentencing hearing I needed to see. No need to watch my daughter in shackles, standing in front of a judge, waiting for numbers to be attached to her future. I had already seen everything I needed to. I saw what betrayal looked like up close. And more importantly, I saw what survival looked like. In the mirror. Every morning. It took weeks to feel normal again. Even now, I hesitate before every sip of tea. I triple-check my calendar and reread my own notes just to reassure myself that my mind is still mine. Some nights, the fear creeps back in. I'll misplace my glasses or forget a phone call and feel my stomach tighten. But then I breathe. I remind myself. I am not broken. I am recovering from being broken. There's a difference. One afternoon, a letter arrived from the state. Sarah had been sentenced to 8 years in prison with eligibility for parole in 5. I sat at the kitchen table, unfolded the paper, read every word slowly, then placed it neatly in a drawer. That was the last time I spoke her name out loud for a while. But silence only heals so much. Eventually, I started volunteering at a local senior center. Nothing big, just a few hours a week, helping organize activities, preparing snacks, reading with the residents. They called me Miss Nora, like I was a schoolteacher. Some of them had memory loss. Some were just lonely. A few had stories that mirrored mine, stories of being manipulated by their own children, gaslight, isolated, made to feel like burdens. I listened. I nodded. I held their hands. And one day, I told them my story. Every word. The room was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then one woman whispered, "That happened to me too." But no one believed me. That's when I knew what I had to do. I started a small support group, just 5 of us at first. We called it Remember Me. A place where people like us, mostly women, mostly older, could speak without shame. Where our memories were honored, our stories protected. Every Tuesday, we'd sit in a circle and reclaim pieces of ourselves. Through laughter. Through tears. Through painful honesty. We remembered the things people tried to make us forget. One of the women, Esther, was a retired schoolteacher who'd been placed in assisted living by a son she hadn't seen since. He called me crazy, she once said. But I wasn't crazy. I was inconvenient. Those words stayed with me. As the weeks passed, more people joined. Daughters, sons, neighbors, nurses. We didn't just talk about abuse, we talked about aging. About how society treats older women like we're fading wallpaper. How our minds become punchlines. How our boundaries are ignored because we have gray hair and softer voices. Not anymore. I wrote an article for the local paper. Then another. Then someone reached out from a state elder advocacy board. They asked if I'd be willing to speak on a panel. I did. I stood on that stage in front of strangers, and I told them that abuse doesn't always come from a stranger in a dark alley. Sometimes it comes from across the dinner table. Sometimes it comes with a smile and a teacup. And sometimes it comes from your own child. That night, after the event, I received an email from the prison. Sarah had requested to see me. No lawyers. No press. Just me. I stared at that message for a long time. And then I deleted it. Not out of hatred. But because some doors stay closed, not out of revenge, but out of self-preservation. She said she was sorry. And maybe she meant it. But forgiveness, real forgiveness, doesn't always mean reunion. It means peace. It means letting go without letting someone back in. I forgave her. That was mine to give. But trust? That was hers to earn. And I don't think I'll ever hand that key back. Today, I sat on the back porch, watching the wind play with the trees. The same wind that used to rattle the windows when Sarah was little and she'd crawl into bed beside me. She's not that girl anymore. And I'm not the woman she thought she could fool. I am 61 years old. I own my home. I remember the lies she told. I remember the fear. I remember how close I came to losing myself. But most of all, I remember who I am. I am Nora Walker. I am not invisible. I am not weak. And I am not confused. They tried to rewrite my story. But I held the pen. And now, every time I speak to someone who's afraid they're just imagining it, I tell them what I learned too late. You're not losing your mind. You're losing your place in someone else's script. So write your own. And if I ever forget again, if the real Alzheimer's ever does come for me, I hope someone will read this back to me, word for word. So I'll remember. So I'll never forget.